I'm going to talk to you today about honesty in publishing. And my intention is that we'll have three different videos on this. And so this is video number one. The reason I'm doing this is because Elm Hill is the only publishing imprint or brand in the world that is half self-publishing and half traditional. All of the book selling and distribution is done by HarperCollins Christian Publishing. We are a division of HarperCollins Christian Publishing. So the editorial and some other kinds of things like PRs and websites are done on the one side, on the self-publishing side, and then the distribution of book selling is done by ACCP. We are the only brand in the world that does that. We think that there's going to be 50 others 10 years from now that take our lead, but right now we're the only ones. We do both traditional. We work with both traditional authors and self-publishing authors. The majority of the people that come to us that end up being clients of ours come from the self-publishing side. I have been a service provider, my companies have, for 20 years for both traditional and self-publishing. I know the self-publishing side very well, and I am sorry to say, and if you're an experienced author, you already know this, that the book self-publishing industry is fraught with con men. It's not the majority of the self-publishing companies. It's a pretty healthy minority, and unfortunately includes some of the biggest. And the goal of our videos is so that you, the author, have a clear-eyed way to do your homework so that you are not one of the thousands and thousands and thousands of self-published authors who have gotten involved with the company, lost thousands of dollars, maybe your entire investment you could afford for publishing, so that you can see these coming before they get you. So that's what these videos are about. To start off, I'm going to tell you a story, and it's not about publishing, it's about my mother. My mother passed away a couple of years ago in her 80s. When she was in her mid-70s, as she started, she was living in the home I grew up in. We've been there since 1961. And she was declining, but not all the way into what you would probably diagnose. It'd be pre-dementia. She was a Cornhusker. She was born in Peoria. She's a very honest woman, forthright. She's my mother. What can I say? Anyway, when she was in her 70s, and she was there. My brother lived with her, but he was gone most of the time. He worked very, very long hours. She had a landscaping company come to the front door. And she was, historically, she was maybe a master gardener, not officially one. She loved her landscaping. She loved her gardening, but she was getting to where she couldn't do a lot of it. It had become overgrown. And so this landscaper said, hey, we see this. How about if we do this and this and this for you? And she said, okay. And so they went and did this and this and this for her. And they came to the door and they said, that'll be $483. She got her checkbook. I'm not sure she thought much about whether that was too much money. And she wrote them a check for $438, $83, whatever. They went away. They came back in 3 or 4 days, probably waiting for the check to clear. They came back in 3 or 4 days. This time they didn't come to the front door. They just started doing more work. And they worked for hours. Went to her door, said, Mrs. Fitch, we've done this and this and this and this. And that'll be $819. She said, oh. Didn't really think about it. Probably was at that point not remembering a lot that was happening before in previous days. Went and got her paycheck, went and got her checkbook, wrote the check. They come again 4 or 5 days later. Then they come again, another 4 or 5 days later. Then they come a fifth time, another 4 or 5 days later. And they come and they come and they come and they never go to the door until they do the work, and then they come and they told her what they did, and sometimes they did it and sometimes they didn't, and sometimes it was something that was already done and they charge her more, until she had racked up a bill of almost $15,000. By the time my brother figured out what was happening and greeted them with a pitchfork or something, at which time they went away. She just got conned. She got taken advantage of. She got taken advantage of by roofers. She didn't need a roof. She certainly didn't need a $21,000 roof that was worth about $9,000 that was trouble after it was done. She didn't ask for one. She didn't need one. Same kind of thing. So the kind of cons that go on in publishing are not unlike those kinds of just, you're an honest person. You expect that the person sitting across from you is honest, or reasonably so, and it's just not true. The self-publishing industry is fraught with premeditated con artists. Self-publishing, there's nothing wrong with self-publishing per se, as long as you stay away from those people. But some of those people are very good at it. Some of those people are some of the biggest brands you'll see. So first of the 3 videos, so I'm going to start with some overview things. I think that the first one, most of you already know, but possibly not. If you're considering a self-publishing company, you need to go onto Google and you need to Google that publishing company's name plus complaints. That publishing company's name plus scam. Okay, and you'll get a bunch of, don't do the ads at the top, go down to where it's actually doesn't say ad at the beginning, and read reviews, read complaints. Don't stop at one reviewer. Read 10 reviewers, read 15 complaints. If you're seeing hundreds of complaints, and there are some that have hundreds of complaints, you can pretty much just stop considering them. If you are reading, I want you to get used to reviewers and read several of them. Some of the reviewers are employed by a publisher. They just don't act like it. Some of the reviewers there's con artists in the reviewer population too, where they are generally, you can spot them, they are generally angry. They are, if you read their comments, they are extremely aggressive. And what you find out is they have their own services. So their business is to trash other businesses and then be a hero and get business. Most of them are not that way. So read and get used to ones you're comfortable with. Some of them, they don't have the time to review very deeply. That's why another reason you have to use several. Use several. And, you might throw out the best and the worst. And if you suspect that something is just too good about a company, it might be written by that company. So that's why you have 5 or 6. Get the ones you're comfortable with, and always look, you can also do publisher name review. Always look at scam, complaint, review, and don't stop on one. You may have one that eviscerates the company you're looking at. Read 5 more anyway, because there's agendas going on. And if you read 5 or 6, you'll get a good sense of it. And you'll figure out what reviewers you like. You have to do your homework. If in the sales pitch that the publishing company has given you, it sounds too good to be true, it's because it's too good to be true. If they're talking about movie producers, if they're talking about bestsellers, blockbusters, I think yours is key is perfect for the market today, and I think it might be able to be a bestseller. If they are playing to your ego, if they're playing to your heart, your dreams about your manuscript, and they're doing that a lot, beware. If what they're telling you, publishing is not horribly difficult, but if it goes smooth as silk in the sales process and everything that you want, they say they can get to you, and everything just sounds perfect, right? It could be that you found the right person. More often than not, what you have found is one of these companies that lie to you to get you to sell, and then you'll find out what happens after that, after they have you, after you've spent money that you can't afford to not go forward with. So if it's, just beware, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. It takes more homework to do this next one, so I'll just touch on it now. You need to see what traditional publishers' websites look like. You can go to the bookstore and write down 10 publishers that you see. 99.9% of the books that are in there are traditionally published, not self-published. There are rare exceptions. You'll find ours in Christian bookstores and independent bookstores, or you'll find somebody that would have been successful no matter what that they had because of the book that they wrote. Not very many. That's like 1 in 1,000. So go in a bookstore and read some publishers, or maybe you know some traditional publishers that you know are traditional publishers. Look at their website. Look at what kind of language they use. Look at their submission standards. They tend to be kind of off-putting because they reject way over 99% of manuscripts that are taken to them, and most of them won't even talk to you unless you have an agent. So you can get a sense of the tone, you can get a sense of the submissions, you can get a sense of what traditionals are like. The reason that's important is that there are many self-publishing companies that try to make themselves look traditional because they know every author wants to be traditionally published. And they will use that same language, and they will use some of the same submission requirements, and they will use all those things, and you'll find out on the back end that they're charging you tons, and they're not traditional at all. And they generally give very, very little value for the money you gave, even if you accept that they're self-publishing. So learn what traditional publishers look like. And I'll get later on in detail to the how to tell the self-pubs that are trying to con you. The last thing, most important thing in this, there are several things you have to put together to protect yourself. But the most important one is that when you pay for self-publishing services, you use a credit card. And you use a credit card that has protest abilities on it. Virtually all of them do, but I'm not going to say that. You need to make sure that the credit card you use is that way. If you use a debit card, is it that way? Can you protest? Right? Major banks do that. You need that. I'll get to the details of that later on. But you may do a bunch of homework and still get conned, and you want to be able to get out of it. I mean, you may spend $5,000. You may spend $8,000. God forbid, it's a con man. There's some slicks out there. You need to protect yourself. Protest. That's it for today. On the other two, we're going to be talking about the lack of the things to watch out for in marketing, the things to watch out for in sales, in contracts. We have maybe 15 different items, and they'll be for video number 2, video number 3. Thank you very much.